Very important guests here in our little audio suites. Like this morning's guest, please welcome to the program candidate for Ward 1 City Council seat here in Quincy. Joe Murphy has stopped on by to chat with us a little bit about his candidacy and about himself and about things that he thinks are important in Ward 1 and in Quincy. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe. Thanks to have me.
Pleasure to have you, really. I've invited all the candidates in the upcoming election, both for the primary and for the general election as well. We're trying to get them all in here in a short period of time because it's closing in quickly on us for sure. September 10th is the preliminary election, and there are 3 candidates actually for Ward 1 Council, you being one of them.
Yeah, that's right.
How come?
Well, this is my second time around. I ran in 2017 as well, and I decided to run again because I believe that the job of the Ward 1 counselor is to represent the people of Ward 1 at City Hall and not the mayor in the ward. And I think sometimes it gets a little bit backwards where, the mayor's agenda is kind of put out into the city, and then some ward councilors sometimes get confused and feel like what their job is to help the mayor make that happen. Now, sure, there's an aspect of helping the mayor connect with the constituents of a certain ward, but really the job is to lobby for what we need in Ward 1.
Are there things that the council has approved that you would not have approved?
No, I would say it's more the reverse. I think it's there's always things that votes for yes that I don't agree with. Mm-hmm. But as far as Ward 1 concerned, it just seems like we're being a little too patient. It took almost an entire city council term to get some paving done on C Street. Mm-hmm. And although it looks great now that it's happening, I feel like these things need to move faster, and not at the pace that maybe is easiest for the administration, but what works for the people in Ward 1. So when you drive through Ward 1, it's basically a slalom trying to avoid potholes and road problems. If you door knock in Ward 1, all people need to do is step out and point. And it happens every door I go to. You knock on the door, how's it going? They step out and say, look at that. And then you look, and there's a sidewalk that hasn't been repaired in years. And they said people with strollers know they have to get in the street there because they're going to get tripped up by that sidewalk. Or joggers wind up having to go in the street. Now, when you go into the street, there's a domino effect. Now you're in the flow of car traffic. And these are things that are just kind of like, well, they're not killing anybody. We'll get to it when we get to it. But how many cycles do we need to wait for basic repairs? Everyone pays more in their property taxes every year. Regardless, the mill rate might go down, but they pay more. Mm-hmm. And they see less and less for their money on their actual street they live in. So
you think the priorities are not where they need to be?
Oh, absolutely not. Okay. The priorities have been let's build beautiful greens. Let's fight against bridges. Let's do these big headline grabbing projects. But the city council, I believe our main focus is to improve life of our residents, and what they need is maybe just some more attention to the basics, bones of the city. We don't need to be sued by the EPA because we're not taking care of our waterways. We need people worrying about the not-so-sexy job of running a city, which is sometimes infrastructure.
How would you make sure that those priorities are heard at City Hall? What are some of your ideas for getting those needs, those constituent services to the top of the list?
Well, don't be afraid to be a little bit of a pain in the rear, at these meetings. It's great to have a good relationship with the mayor. Well, you can get a lot done by having a good relationship with the chief executive of the city, but you can also get things done by saying, hey, we're not going to do this luxury thing you need until we start talking about what needs to be done. I said in my first campaign, it still holds true. You eat dinner before dessert, and you do your homework before you go outside and play. And I think sometimes in Quincy, we do things the other way. And we, as far as I remember, let's take the waterways, for instance. We used to have an officer who would be able to write fines for environmental violations. That person either left or was let go. I don't really know the story, but we never replaced it, and it's been years. Are we surprised that we're getting sued by the EPA when we don't have a current person who's in charge of making sure construction sites are watching the flow from their work? Or, every time we get a storm, we've come to just live with every time there's a storm that Wollaston Beach is going to be polluted. I understand that that's part of it, but when do we say, okay, what do we do to stop that? Instead of just assuming, oh, there was a storm, we're not swimming today. Maybe we can work on some of the less exciting things about running a city.
Have the reasons for you running this time around changed from the first time?
Some of them, sure. I have more of a focus now. When I ran the first time, it was kind of just like a lot of things that I think matter to me in life. After running, I realized that I was thinking my bowl was too big for city council. But now that I've talked to people and I've started to see, and I think I even said this in my wrap-up interview with you and Mark after the election, I now really see the pattern. When you knock on doors and you talk to enough people, there's only a few issues that keep coming up repeatedly, and like potholes and sidewalks, cleaning up parks. These are things that people want and expect from local government. Some of the more fancy issues, don't get me wrong, local government can do a lot for the environment. Local government can do a lot for education. But over and over, the people, especially in Ward 1, what I hear is, hey, I'll pay my taxes, but I don't want to see the lawn in city-owned green spaces up to my waist. I expect that it's going to be mowed, and if you just go on Facebook and see what they're complaining about, they're not complaining about like curriculum in the school, although that comes up, but the pattern is just basics, and we get away from basics because I don't think basics, drive clicks and readership, and I think like there's people with larger aspirations love to point to green spaces and love to point to oh, we're the first city to do this, but I want to point to, hey, you can stay on the sidewalk throughout Ward 1 and not have to jump into the middle of the street to get around. Yeah.
Ward 1 itself, it's a very diverse area of the city. It's very coastal, House Neck, Adam Shore, Germantown. But we're sitting in Ward 1 here at the library in downtown Quincy as well. Yeah. So it's got different needs for different areas, I'm sure. So how do you kind of...
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing is some people in Ward 1 feel forgotten, especially as you come towards the middle of the city, you feel like, oh, well, he's from House Neck. He only cares about the House Neck stuff. And unfortunately, that's not the case. But the common themes apply to every neighborhood in Ward 1. Every neighborhood in Ward 1 has sidewalks that are just being left, to rot. And every street in Ward 1 has potholes that get, I almost want to learn how to fill potholes so that I, can pull my car over and fill it in with gravel, because I don't know about you, but I have every year, the past several years, I've had to go and get something repaired on my car that has come from hitting like rough road.
Yeah.
So all those things matter. And then the other things that matter wherever you go in the city, but wherever you go in Ward 1, is people want the development to be smart. They're not against Quincy like developing. What they don't want is apartment complexes that don't fit into the fabric of the neighborhood. What they don't want is apartment complexes that are going to bring 20 to 40 new vehicles onto a street that already has limited parking. Yeah. And then with no real plan on how we're going to fit all those cars. That's a real tough issue, because we need housing. I get that. You can't, bring down the cost of housing without adding to the supply. But we got to be smart about where we decide to put these things.
Classic case example of that type of development was on Newcomb Street, mostly residential side street, right?
Right.
With a pretty large development proposed there.
Yeah, and that happens over and over. And there, you go to the zoning board, and the zoning board will talk them down from, we want 60 units, and we get down to 40, and then the city calls it a win.
Yeah.
But everyone's learned to play the game. They know you go in with a ridiculous amount of apartments, and then you get the actual amount that you're planning on building anyway. And also, there's a tension between parking philosophy. Like Councilor Kroll had an idea, and I think it got passed, which was to increase the amount of parking that developers need to provide with their development. And I can understand that because street parking is limited, and like some people have a 2-car driveway. Both spouses have a car, and their 16-year-old has a car, so they need that spot on the street.
Right.
Problem is, you got to think about the environment as well. So when we add to the cars coming into Quincy, we're adding to congestion. We're adding to our carbon footprint. And we got to think, we're a coastal city. The seas are rising. Now, we can't fix the world's climate change problem in Quincy alone.
Right.
But we got to also think a little bit down the road. Is it healthy to... It's great that we built these things up higher so that we can fit more cars in. And that way the streets don't get clogged as much for parking. But those cars are still going to be driving around on these streets. Is there a way to attract residents, like they do in some other cities around Boston, that don't need the cars? Some younger residents who are perfectly fine with calling an Uber twice a week, and they're happy to not have a car payment, and they are more inclined to be on a bike. And if we can get our public transportation mess untangled, there are younger people and some older people who would be perfectly thrilled not to have a car in their life. You know, when I lived in Boston, I didn't want a car. And if Quincy can get that kind of walkability, bikeability, you might see people say, hey, I'll save the $250 plus insurance a month, and go carless.
Does the city need, somebody, a dedicated person just for that specific purpose, to make it more environmentally friendly?
Yeah, I would love it if we did that. But what we can't do is make a new position because somebody's nephew needs a job. It's got to be a real advocate, a real person with knowledge who has seen it done in other cities. I work in Cambridge. Cambridge is got a lot of the same challenges Quincy does. It's
just
thickly
on a bigger
settled,
scale, right?
Yeah, just on a bigger scale. But you can get around Cambridge, I think, as a walker and a biker, way easier than you can Quincy. And if Quincy can be we're starting to see the bike lanes slowly, but some bike paths. We have in Ward 1, we have that the Dyke path that people informally use. I would love to see that turned into a bike path. Let people get in and out of the Neck or in and out of Germantown on their bikes more easily than taking their lives at risk at C Street Raceway.
C Street Raceway, did you say?
Yeah.
Well, there is some updates going on at C Street Quincy Shore Drive now.
Yeah.
So that is designed at least to improve the flow there.
I'm happy about it. As someone who makes that right turn every morning. I'm selfishly thrilled that we're going to be able to keep going, because that's sometimes where you get stuck.
It's a bottleneck there. Yeah,
but there's a part of me that realizes we're thinking old school with some of these improvements. We're thinking like how to make this easier to make the drive. And for the near future, we need to think like that, but we also have to keep an eye on what is the city going to look like, in 10, 15 years. Because we got to make decisions now that make those types of evolution possible.
You mentioned you work in Cambridge. Can you tell us a bit about your personal side, Joe?
I'm an administrator at MIT. I'm the assistant director of administration at a research department at MIT. I've been there 12 years. I started as an administrative assistant and worked my way up to program coordinator, then to assistant director. I take care of budgets. I take care of grant proposals. I take care of intellectual property management. sponsor relations, corporate sponsor relations within my research department. So a lot of the same skill sets that can be deployed at the government level, I do in my day-to-day job. So there's a lot of good overlap. If you look at the Venn diagram of my skill set, I think getting corporations to care about research is probably not that different than getting corporations to care about the improving the cities that their consumers live in, that their employees work in, that their headquarters are.
If elected, what would be some of your short-term goals, and then maybe your longer-term goals?
Well, short-term goals are easy. There's lots that need to start happening. I promised weekly office hours in my first campaign, and that promise still stands.
Okay.
So what I plan on doing is in places like the C Street Duncans or Cagney's on Washington or any of the number of businesses we have in Ward 1, including the library, I'll just put on my website, hey, I'm going to be at this location from 4 to 6 Thursday evening. I'm going to have my laptop out, just working on things, either personal or city-related. Come drop by if you want the ear of the counselor.
Okay.
And that way, people who might be inclined to have a personal conversation with their counselor but don't want to go on Facebook and risk the backlash of making a comment can come and just sit down and get the ear of the counselor one-on-one. Some people like to email, but then how many times have you emailed a public official and gotten either a form response back or or nothing back? This way, hey, I have a problem. I'm upset with this project that's going on down the street, or I'm upset that this house on Wall Street has been dilapidated and dangerous for years, and nothing's being done. You can sit there and actually talk to the person. So that's one thing, office hours. The second thing is community meetings have got to start happening again. Right now, we don't really have them. The only community meetings that were just about what the people wanted to talk about that I know of were meetings that were set up by the community, meaning I used to be on the community council, and we invited the ward counselor out, and he came and gave a presentation, but we had to do that. He didn't say, I'm going to hold a community meeting for whatever you need to talk about. Okay. So we need to start having meetings that are driven by not the decisions that are about to be inflicted on the residents, but what the residents care about. So community meetings on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. The social media presence of the counselor right now can be improved. It's basically cutting and pasting notices from other people. Come on, let's have some original content. Let's have the counselor actually talk to the people, not just cut and paste press releases from the city. Previous counselors were much better at this, and we can improve that.
Okay.
So communication's number one. Okay. But also, I want to see the decisions made at the city council level be good for not just the ward, but for the city as a whole, and not just a go along, get along approach. Right now, if we're just saying yes to everything because we're scared of, like when we vote, the wards are just saying yes to everything because they're scared. Well, if I don't vote for, if I don't vote for this terrible idea coming out of Ward 6, he's not going to vote for my idea out of Ward 1. So everyone just starts voting for everything yes because they want a yes on there. That's just not a way to run a city or anything, really. So I'm hoping by being not part of the political clique, I'm going to bring an independence and a new perspective to city council that right now is not being seen. On the most part. I don't want to speak for all 9 members. There's some independent thinkers there. But for the most part, it's part of this clique mentality.
Do you think Quincy taxpayers are getting a good value for their dollar, basically?
Not when it comes to the basic bones of the city.
Okay.
I mean, I think that the city, as I said in the beginning of our talk, is foregoing some of their basic. I put it like this. We're putting in man caves in the basement, and we're re-siding the house. But meanwhile, the foundation can be crumbling. Is that what the taxpayers want? Is like from afar, like said the old comedy in the 90s, like the city's a bit of a Monet. Like from afar, it's, oh, look at us. And then you get up close, it's a mess. So I don't think it's, I mean, there are red flags. I don't think it's a good idea. A good indication that we're getting sued by a federal government, if you don't mind me saying, that the environment doesn't matter that much too. The fact that we're getting sued by this administration, yikes. So I want to focus on things, like I said before, that aren't as sexy, but are absolutely necessary. Because my kids, this is their hometown. We didn't talk about this, but I'm not originally from here.
Okay.
But this is my girls' hometown. They're born here. This is where they're going to grow up. I care more about this town than I do my original hometown. I don't even know what's going on there.
Where's that, Joe?
In Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea what issues my hometown's facing, but I care greatly that my girls are going to grow up in a hometown where the water is always going to be clean, and they don't have to, that they can't say, oh, we can't go in the ocean. The waterways in Quincy are the crown jewel of this city, and we are not treating them as such when we allow them to go backwards. When we were so proud, oh, wow, you can swim. When I first moved to Quincy, I was told that, oh, we had sewage, we had problems, and we were fixing them, and now we're going backwards? No. Cannot let that happen. We need to go forwards. We need to lead when it comes to the environment. Our fleet of public vehicles, we don't have any electric vehicles. Braintree is moving towards all electric vehicles. I see the mayor driving around in a tank like he's the vice president in this big black SUV. What kind of symbol would it be if the car that we bought for our chief executive was an environmentally friendly car? Suddenly people see the mayor go by in an electric vehicle. They go, oh, electric vehicles must not be that weird, But we see him go by in a tank. Why? So you know what I mean? Like, there are little symbolic things that we can do that not only will help the bottom line year to year, less gas, less, more environmentally friendly, but also show people that, hey, this is not exotic anymore. This is the future. We're going towards electric. Right now there's still a lot of people that think that kind of stuff is weird. It's not weird. And I think there's things we can do at a city level to ease that transition.
As with anything, when we talk about new projects or improving existing infrastructure, the question comes up is how do you pay for it? So
you pay for it by not wasting tax dollars. First of all, there are things that we, like I said before, like luxury projects. I don't want to say they're wasteful, but again, I think they're out of whack. I think people would care more about having their streets be clean and traversable than a nice fountain that once in a blue moon they get to walk by when they happen to be in Quincy Center in the middle of the night. I would love to get to the point where those kinds of projects make sense on a priority level. I'd love to get to the point where, like, our streets are smooth, our sidewalks are safe. You can bike from one end of Quincy to the other without worrying about dying. And then go, wow, it's time to put a nice little park here. But we're not there. And we kind of just went the other way. We're like, oh, well, this is such a mess. We can't do anything about that, but we can at least make a park. No, come on. That's not leadership, in my opinion.
You have a couple of events coming up that you wanted to talk about?
The only thing on my agenda at the moment, September 5th is a Thursday night. We're having a candidates night at Marymount, organized by the Marymount Association. So that'll be a good time to get out there and hear everyone all at once and ask some questions, or have someone else ask questions. But it's always a fun time. It's right by the beach. It's a pleasant evening.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned social media, so I'm assuming you're on.
My website is www.VoteJoeMurphy.com.
Okay.
And then everything on social media is at @VoteJoeMurphy.
Okay.
So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you can find me at @VoteJoeMurphy.
Okay. Doing anything differently this campaign than you did the first time around, Joe?
Not differently, but everything is much easier now that there are people who recognize the name. So, like, I go out and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember you from 2 years ago. You got your butt kicked," and I say, "You're right, but I'm going to get it out there again." And they remember me and they appreciate it. As I was telling you earlier, this summer I was just getting my groove on when I had just a couple things after another just kind of hit me. I had a death in the family that really rocked everyone, and then I had some health problems that I wasn't expecting to have to deal with. So, like, just as I was getting my groove going, my summer kind of got knocked over. But I'm back, and I'm feeling great, and so you're going to see more of me in the next couple weeks.
Okay, great. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, please reach out to me if there's anything that I'm not talking about that I should be talking about. My theme of my campaign is to represent the people of Ward 1. So if I'm not covering something that's important to you, please get a hold of me.
Okay, great. Appreciate your time, Joe. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Very welcome. Quincy, Ward 1 City Council candidate Joe Murphy, one of 3 candidates on the ballot for the September 10th preliminary election here in Quincy.